Hello and welcome back to our podcast series. Today we are going to talk specifically about purpose and retiring with purpose. So, as a follow-on from our previous podcast where we discussed how financial planning landscape in Ireland has changed dramatically from our parents' time. We're living longer, we have more energy, we have a lot to contribute, and we're not ready to just turn off the switch and retire and stop contributing. So as an extension to that, the greatest value that retirees find is that they have freedom to choose what they want to do and how they want to pursue their interests. And alongside that comes the whole idea of purpose, because we can provide you with all the spreadsheets and all the glossy assumptions about portfolio construction, but having your money in order, yes, will definitely help you sleep better at night, but it's purpose that will get you out of bed in the morning. And this is very well established as being really a very, very important bedfellow when it comes to having a meaningful retirement. And what we want to speak about today is elaborate on that whole area of trying to identify a true purpose in retirement, and particularly in the early years of retirement, that will help you transition from the helter-skelter work life to a more meaningful retirement. It's not a non-off switch where you just go from this to point A to point B. It has to be a comfortable transition for you and the people closest to you. So when talking about purpose, you really need to have an open mind. Don't get bogged down on spreadsheets again. That can certainly hinder our creative process. So I really want you to sit back and think big. Involve your significant other in this conversation and try and picture yourself in 10 years' time if you were to look back and kind of appraise how the first 10 years of retirement went. What do you want it to look like? What do you want to be doing? How does it reflect on your relationships, on your friends, on your health, obviously? So your purpose needs to fit in with all these things. The last thing I want you to do is to be hinging on certainty, because certainty is almost like perfection. You're never going to get it, and especially when it comes to proper retirement planning. You can get bogged down on making numerous assumptions and saying that if this assumption doesn't come true, well, then the whole plan has gone out the window. Every year you have to sit down and review whatever plan you have put in place, and you have to remain agile, because the Americans like to say, make sure you have a big eraser when you're doing a financial plan, and it's a fair point, because none of this is set in stone. Your retirement, just like your life, is subject to change every day of the week. And we spoke in the previous podcast about how a 30-year retirement is very much a given. So when you were in your 20s, you didn't make plans that were going to set in stone all the way through to when you were in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, and so on. So we got to approach retirement planning with the same flexibility and agility. And when we're talking about identifying a true purpose, you have to incorporate what that purpose is going to look like and aligned to your relationships, to your friends, and to your health. As we said in previous podcasts, you're retiring with plenty more to contribute. You've built up huge connections, plenty of wisdom, a lot of energy. So you can't allow yourself to fall into a vacuum or a void that will ultimately be filled by unhelpful habits. So that's why it's so important that you really sit back and embrace the uncertainty, try to keep flexible, but really engage in some blue sky thinking and into how you're actually going to use this freedom that you've got. Because we spoke in the past how retirees, ultimately what they're looking for is this freedom. And you want to explore this freedom to choose what it is you want to do with your life. That's what retirement is giving people. So we have to align this freedom with a purpose that's going to basically get you out of bed in the morning. And in order to do that, don't focus on the maths, don't focus on the figures, forget about perfection and certainty. In a way, just be flexible and go with the flow. So before we get into the figures, because we will talk about how to build a financial plan based on your purpose and your identity. But before we do that, I need you to kind of just take some time and reflect if that may be, but try and visualize what you want your retirement to look like.